Hello, Blue Jays fans. Welcome to episode 243 of the Jays from the Couch radio podcast, brought to you by, of course, jaysfromthecouch.com. We're so happy you're tuning in for another week of our live streaming of our podcast, whether it's on YouTube or Facebook or Twitter. Thank you so much for tuning in live. And of course, as always, if you missed the live show, you can always catch it on our YouTube channel. But the audio version is available on Apple, Google, Spotify, Stitcher. Anywhere you find a podcast, you'll find Jays from the Couch Radio. Thanks for tuning in for another week. Really, really appreciate it. I'm your host, as always, Sean Doyle. You can follow me on Twitter at JFtC. We've got a great episode for you this week. We'll be joined in a minute here by Michael Lortz of the Tampa Bay Baseball Market.com. Also author of a new book, which we'll get his thoughts on that. It sounds like a great read. I can't wait to dive into that for myself. Was going to buy it for my son for Christmas, but I may just steal it from him anyway. So we'll talk about his book. We'll talk about the Tampa Bay Rays and whether or not there's anything that can be done this winter with regards to the Toronto Blue Jays and dealing within the division and all of that. It's a great episode. Thanks for tuning in. And at this time, I'm going to bring in my guests for this week, Michael Lortz of Tampa Bay Baseball Market.com. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. I'm glad to reach out to an independent baseball guy like yourself. So first of all, tell all of our viewers and listeners and everything, what exactly is Tampa Bay Baseball Market?
Well, Tampa Bay Baseball Market is my business look at Tampa Bay sports, specifically baseball. What I did is I started it in 2014, and I just started with just tracking attendance. Answering the simple questions like, okay, do the Rays actually have a good attendance day? Attendance is often belittled here, and it reflects on our fan base. People say, oh, you don't have any fans. And the Rays fans argument is always the same. Well, the stadium's too far from the center of the population. And I could get into that more and more. But I started looking at just putting numbers on Excel spreadsheets and seeing what patterns I could come up with. I'm not a deep statistical person. So to me, it was kind of a neat way for me to get into that a little bit, at least as far as Excel could go. I'm not like I said, not a data scientist by any stretch of the imagination. I'm a writer by trade and an analyst as well. So I was in business school at the time and doing some market analysis classes. I said, well, why don't I take marketing and add baseball to it? So it became sort of like a marketing look at the Rays as well. A lot of that type of stuff. Who's sponsoring them? How much reach do they have in the fan base? How much reach do they have in the region? How much reach do they have throughout Florida? And it just kind of kept building and building. I started in 2014. I ended the daily blog in 2018 because I got a job overseas for a year. So I figured I was a little too far it's allergy season here. So if you see me just do that, I apologize. Anyway, stopped the blog in 2018 on a regular basis because I was overseas trying to follow baseball and everything was a little difficult. But I still chime in on occasion on the blog, definitely still active on the Twitter account. TB Baseball MKT. So for anybody who wants to follow me on Twitter, that's the handle. Definitely still active. Have some really cool followers. So a lot of people, some of the local politicians follow me. Some of the MLB Network folks. Thank you to anybody who's a bigger, quote unquote, than me, who's supported, liked, retweeted, all that stuff. So it's been a pretty cool journey.
Awesome. So something in what you just said there, I think I'd like to start there. The reach of the Tampa Bay Rays. And you mentioned too, and I've been to Tropicana Field just the once. We were on vacation and my wife took the kids to Universal Studios and I said, no thanks, I'm going to watch some baseball.
Okay.
So, but that being said, it took a while to get to the actual stadium.
Yes.
And I guess I'll just stop there because there's a couple of other comments I could make about that experience. But can you talk a little bit about the reach of the Rays?
So Tropicana Field was, and people don't like when I say this, Tropicana Field was built on an erroneous premise that if we find cheap land in the 80s, in the mid to late 80s, in a very poor part of town, in the poor part of the region, that if you build it, they will come. They grabbed that Field of Dreams line and ran with it. And that's not the case. You need to build a stadium where people are so it's convenient to them. And especially not in the poorer part of the region. That's a really bad thing because people in that local vicinity will not buy season tickets. And that's not where the businesses are. So Tropicana Field was really built on an erroneous premise. Stu Sternberg bought the team in late 2005, early 2006, and said, well, I'm going to put a winner here, and maybe that will increase the fan base, and that will increase attendance. To an extent, it has definitely increased the fan base. It has not increased attendance. They saw a few peaks, but it has not increased the overall attendance. So the Rays' reach is actually kind of limited. They face a lot of competition in the area. You've got 3 major sports teams. Now a 4th is playing with the Toronto Raptors playing it in the area. You've got some 4 major sports teams now. You've got a bunch of minor league teams, including the Dunedin Blue Jays. You've got a lot of smaller sports. They had an XFL team from when the XFL was going on. So Tampa cannot say no to sports. And it really puts the Rays at the bottom of the totem pole in regards to marketing and fan interest and everything like that. They're an afterthought in their own city.
Which is unfortunate. I mean, considering if you look around the league and how many clubs are, at the forefront of everything that's going on in that city, and here's Tampa Bay. And so I wonder then, and I do want to talk to you about the stadium, and maybe I'll do that now.
Sure.
The stadium itself, when I was there, I think there was, it was very much, and people mention Rogers Center in Toronto used to be called Sky Dome about, the concreteness of it. And Tampa Bay has a lot of that as well. Yes. And I remember trying to find even a store to go to buy my son a shirt. And it was rather difficult to navigate. And I think there were more people working there than there were actually watching the game. But listen,
I get it. I'm used to the jokes by now. Used to them. And taking it stride.
I wish I was joking. That's the, but at some point, is a new stadium on the horizon? Because I swear a few years ago, I remember seeing a mock-up of a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful outdoor stadium. And yet, what's going on with the Rays and their stadium?
So since 2008, since the Sternberg regime, if you want to call it that, ownership group took over, there have been 2 big plans. One was in South St. Pete. They wanted to convert Al Lang Stadium, where the Tampa Bay Rowdy soccer team plays, currently into a baseball field. That was at the time the Rays spring training field, and they wanted to, Al Lang Stadium had been a spring training home for the Yankees, the Cardinals, the Mets. It was St. Pete's spring training hub. They wanted to convert that to a major league field. The problem is it was too tucked into urban St. Pete. There was no way to expand it to a 30,000 person stadium or more. And parking would have been rough, and ingress and egress would have been difficult. So they put it. So that plan was scratched. That was about 2008, 2009. Then in 2018, going into 2019, there was another plan because the Rays had actually had permission to talk to the city of Tampa. So the city of Tampa and city of St. Pete are in 2 different counties. The Rays use agreement is with the city of St. Pete. The former mayor of St. Pete did not want the Rays talking to the city of Tampa, thinking that, you know what, if I lose them to Tampa, I've lost the team. Not thinking regionally, thinking very locally. So in 2016, 2017 or so, the new mayor of St. Pete says, you could talk to Tampa. We'd rather keep you regionally than lose you to some other city. So they found a plot in downtown Tampa, and everyone looked at it and was like, well, I guess a stadium could fit there. It's probably going to be smaller. It's probably going to be less than 30,000 fans. It could fit. Again, ingress and egress would be very difficult. They would probably have to build a highway exit off of the turnpike that goes there. but we could make it happen. And it was, as you said, it was a beautiful drawing. It was right by sort of Tampa's old city neighborhood. So you had parking garages and you had a lot of buildings going up. The Tampa Bay Lightning owner, Jeff Vinic's, putting up some business buildings like right by there. So you had a lot of commotion going on in that part of the city. The problem is the price tag. So the Rays said, hey, it's going to cost us close to $800 million to $1 billion. And the city of Tampa said, okay, how much are you putting in? And the Rays were like, well, maybe 150. And everybody just kind of looked at it and were like, no way. So then on top of that, there was a real estate sort of mini scandal where one of the county commissioners had clued in one of the major real estate owners here in Tampa about, hey, expect wink, wink, nod, nod, a major project to go in this block of the downtown. So the dude bought up all the land there. Then the Rays were like, oh, this is where we want to be. So I think the FBI was actually involved in investigating the county commissioner's deal. So that's going to put the Knicks on a stadium real quick when the FBI gets involved.
Yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense. I mean, you kind of want, things in the clear and in the open if you're going to go ahead with such a project. I did not know that, and that's a fascinating little story. So, I guess now, is there any option other than Tropicana Field even in the next couple of years even?
So nothing's probably going to change till 2026, 27. The lease agreement goes until 2027. Sternberg is sort of the villain here, I guess, to a lot of Rays fans, because the moment he put the Montreal idea out there, everybody was like, oh God, no, here goes our team. North of the border, I know you guys are sympathetic to losing teams, especially the Montreal fan base. But at the same time, they're now very excited that, hey, we might get Major League Baseball back. And we're the ones now clutching and saying, it's our team. So the shoe is on the other foot for them. And I understand their excitement. To get Major League Baseball is a huge accomplishment for a city. But I feel like Sternberg, a lot of owners have done this, play one city versus another. And we all see he's using the same playbook that owners have used for 60, 70 years when it comes to moving franchises. We see exactly what's happening, and we're like, just come on, man. Let's drop the charade and let's actually get something done here in the Tampa Bay area. So every time he says, I'm not committed to this area, we're like, we're a little bit worried, and we're getting a little bit more worried as time goes on. Obviously, COVID-19 has hit every major city worldwide and hurt every major city's ability to fund major projects. And we need new transportation. We need education funding. We need so many, just like every other city, we need a lot of other municipal funding that we don't have $1 billion to pay for a baseball stadium.
Yeah.
And so my theory is that Major League Baseball, the entity that is a multi-billion-dollar organization, really needs to help out and say, hey, we're committed to Tampa Bay. We will help fund a quarter of it. So the Rays only have to put up a quarter. The city needs to put up half. Can we start there?
Yeah. So, and in the context of the global pandemic and the financial situation that you alluded to, it's not going to. I guess it's difficult sell to make a new stadium a priority, even though for some reason Rogers, the owner of the Toronto Blue Jays, is gonna go ahead and try and put a new one up. They announced that.
When I read that and I was flabbergasted. I was like, wow. Must be nice.
Yeah, well, and the reason I bring that up is because I think if somebody were to just kind of put a bug in the ear of the Toronto Blue Jays front office, they may even chip in a few dollars to help out with a new stadium because the Blue Jays cannot win in Tropicana Field. So, it's just a nightmare. And so every time, there's a series coming up in Tampa Bay, we're all just sitting here going, oh, great, here we go again. So what is it? What is it about the Tampa Bay Rays and Tropicana Field that is such a pain for the Toronto Blue Jays or anybody really?
There is a home field advantage to play the Tropicana Field for all of its quirks. Whether it's see the ball off the roof, playing in that kind of environment, it does become sort of a home field advantage for the Rays. And the Astros really found out how loud Tropicana Field gets in the playoffs in 2019. If the Rays draw regularly and it's filled with Rays fans, not Yankees fans or Red Sox fans or other out-of-town fans, I'll admit that, it does get really loud. And when the Rays fans bring their cowbells, dust their cowbells off and bring those back, Tropicana Field, there's a home field advantage there. Again, whether it's just playing off the rings or the roof or just, understanding where the bullpen mounds are, anything like that, any of the little picadillos of Tropicana Field. The Rays have grown accustomed to being there.
Right. And I think it was, I want to say 2015, maybe Milky Cabrera at bat and the big thunderstorm ahead. And, he had to go, I believe he called time and went and changed his shorts. Just stuff like that you just don't see everywhere else. One idea here, we've got a viewer, Steve Fichetti, also writes for Jays from the Couch. He's watching at home, and he's wondering what you think about shifting ticket marketing towards other teams rather than kind of trying to attract younger Rays fans.
So I understand that logic, but I also think that doing so would alienate Rays fans. If you say, hey, Yankees fans, come out and see the 9 games the Yankees play there, or the 9 games, because, it's 9 at home and 9 on the road for your division rivals. In a typical 162 game season, you're playing your 18 to 19 games versus your interdivision rivals. So it's 9 games. There's Red Sox, Blue Jays, Orioles, and Red Sox. Yeah, and Yankees. I see the value in that, but it is alienating the local fan base. If you say, hey, Yankees fans, hey, Red Sox fans, come on out, we'll give you a discount that you're not giving to Rays fans. You don't want to base your ticket marketing on tourism. And that's pretty much what you're doing for snowbirds and other I don't say immigrants, but non-natives to your team. You want to build a strong, loyal fan base. And the problem with the Rays is the strong, loyal fan base is just too small. They get a lot of casual fans. They just don't. There's just not enough in that circle. Mm-hmm. And I like to tell people, I said, okay, so I like to do the quick back of the napkin math here. There's 3 million people in the Tampa Bay area. That's St. Pete, Tampa, Clearwater, Dunedin. The whole region is 3 million people. Half of people on average are baseball fans. 50% are baseball fans, 50% are not. So you have 1.5 million is the overall pool of fans that you could get in the Tampa Bay area. So out of those, I think at last estimate, 50% of those are Rays fans. So there's 750,000 Rays fans in the Tampa Bay area. 20% of them are Yankees fans. About 10% of them are Red Sox fans. And then the other 20% are maybe some Cubs fans that moved down, maybe some Tigers fans, a collective of all the other teams, folks making their home in Tampa Bay. So you got 750,000 Rays fans trying to support 81 games. That means they have to go to, I don't know, it was at least like 2 or 3 games a season. Whereas the 200,000 Yankee fans to go to 9 games is, say the Trop holds 30,000, 9 games, that's back in the napkin math, 270,000. To sell out for every Yankee fan goes once. You're looking at 200,000 people out of 270,000. It's a lot easier for the Yankees to make an impact in their games or the Red Sox fans to make an impact in their 9 games than it is for their 750,000 Rays fans to make an impact on their 81 games at the Trop. So
right.
Just that back of the napkin math summarizes the Rays' problems in a nutshell.
Right. And that makes sense. So it seems to me, considering I'm trying to follow along with the back of your napkin, and I kind of got lost there. So, but I think it to me, Michael, it highlights the need for creative marketing, right? Yes. When you have to, so what is the most creative marketing idea you've seen the Tampa Bay Rays come up with?
Wow, that's a really great question. I would really have to think about that because I'm often critical of the Rays marketing. Mm-hmm. I think for all the great good that they do on the field, the gigantic analytical staff, looking at things like spin rate and level of swing and all the great sabermetric data that we're used to seeing come out of Tampa Bay, their marketing staff just does not do the same sort of analysis. And if they do, they're not public with it. They're not as public with it. I did an interview with one of their directors of marketing for my website a few years ago, or a chief marketing officer, and he was great. He had come from the Nashville the Nashville hockey team. Is it the
Predators?
Predators, yes. Yeah. So the Nashville Predators. He came down from there. Thank you. And he really reinvigorated hockey in Nashville. So now it's a thing to do. He's no longer with the team, with the Rays. I don't know where he went. I don't know what he's doing, but his name is no longer on the front office page. And I was like, wow, that was a big acquisition for you guys. He lasted 2 seasons. And obviously attendance did not grow. Was there a problem? Did he not work out? Like, what did he go on to a bigger, better job? The Rays have just never done the creative marketing that I've thought that they should do. Should they do, buy one, get one free? You know what? I do have an answer for you. On Fridays, they were doing 7-Eleven tickets. You would go to your local 7-Eleven and you could buy an upper deck ticket for $7.11. I don't know how well it worked. I took advantage of it as often as possible because I lived right around the corner from a 7-Eleven. Would just go to the 7-Eleven on my way to work or way home from work, on the way to the ballpark, pick up a Coke, or a bottle of water and a ticket to the ball game, and then just go on a Friday, sit in the upper deck, and then just wander my way around the field, finding a better spot to sit because there's always better spots to sit. So, and it just was not. I don't think they did that for your, I guess the upper tier games, the games against the Yankees, right, games against the Red Sox. But if you also look at the numbers, games against the Red Sox have dropped in attendance. And they really only seem to do well when the Red Sox make the World Series. 2007, what was that? 2010.
I try to
the last 5 years.
I try to forget those years. So
yeah, good call. When David Ortiz retired, for example, attendance to Red Sox games dropped at Tropicana Field. Because they weren't the Red Sox powerhouses that we are unfortunately we're used to. Mm-hmm. And so you see bumps in Red Sox attendance. Yankee attendance tends to stay pretty stable in the Tampa Bay area. There was a bit of a drop when Derek Jeter retired. Those old Yankee teams became the Aaron Judge Yankee teams. So it was a bit of a lull there. But other than that, Yankees attendance at Tropicana Field seems to stay pretty level. Mm-hmm. The trick is the interesting thing that I'm thinking though is that like 2000 when it was the Devil Rays, 2005, 2007ish, those games drew 30,000 people. Now they're only drawing 20,000. And so, wait a minute, if the Rays fan base has grown since the Devil Rays days, where have 10,000 fans go? Are 10,000 less Yankee fans going? So it's my website really uncovered a lot of mysteries like that. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I think that catering to the, it's a really roundabout way of saying catering to visiting teams doesn't build fan loyalty. And I think the Rays really need to build as much fan loyalty as possible. And even if their owner is talking about Montreal on a weekly basis, the front office, the other folks, the marketing team, the president of the Rays, who I have a pretty good email rapport with, they've been great at trying to build that fan base. And I feel like they get their legs cut out from under them on a regular basis by the owner. But, I think catering to the visiting teams is just not a good, solid way to go.
Right. And fair enough. We're talking with Michael Lortz of Tampa Bay Baseball Market, also author of the Curveball at the Crossroads, which, Michael, I do want to talk about here in a bit. I'd like to move into the Rays approach, right? Because we've heard the Toronto Blue Jays front office say we'd like to be more like the Rays. And I'm sure every front office would like to be more like the Rays, get the most out of what little they do spend. I'm wondering, though, if you could speak to the necessity of that, whereas, the Blue Jays could try and emulate that, but they still have the money to throw at a potential hole in the roster or whatever. Whether they want to or not is a completely different story, but it's there. So I'm wondering if you might be able to speak to that necessity that kind of forces the team to be smarter, but also then puts them in a position where they have to trade guys like David Price and the Chris Archers and the so on and so on and so on.
So it's interesting to be a Rays fan in regards to that, because David Price obviously kept up a probably Hall of Fame career after leaving Tampa Bay. Detroit, Toronto for a little bit, now Boston. But a lot of the guys the Rays trade lose their mojo when they leave Tampa Bay. Chris Archer completely lost his entire, he's not an all-star pitcher anymore.
Right.
So Carl Crawford was the same way. When they let Carl Crawford grow, he went to Boston, had I think one mediocre season, and then was a fifth outfielder on the Dodgers for a while. So we don't feel awfully bad about it. They traded Longoria, which broke all of our hearts. But what has he done? I don't think he's made an all-star game with the Giants since. So we always look at that as okay, the Rays kind of know what they're doing when they get a Willy Adames from Detroit, Meadows and Glasnow from Pittsburgh.
Huge, yeah.
Huge. And then Shane Baz is in the minors as one of their top prospects. That Pittsburgh trade is going to live on for a while for us. But we always look at the Rays needing to do this from necessity. And it kind of comes with the territory of being a Rays fan. We wish that, there's no doubt, I could probably speak for the whole fan base here, where we wish we had the money of Toronto. We wish we had the money of some of the other teams that can plug major free agents. Even San Diego signed Manny Machado. So San Diego's not considered a major market, but
that's right. Yeah.
They were able to still swing a free agent now and then. So we're never going to be the Dodgers. We're never going to be the Yankees. We're never going to be the Cubs. We're never going to be the Mets now opening their wallet. But we would at least like to be in the middle tier. And until we get a new stadium where we got corporate season tickets, that's just a stable, steady stream of income. We get a good cable deal. It's a steady, stable stream of income. And we don't have to rely on revenue sharing or, basically be in the poorhouse of teams. Which is weird because we're talking about multi-billion-dollar industries here, being from a poor billion-dollar team versus a rich billion-dollar team, still a billion-dollar team. But it's fun watching the Rays take a reclamation project, a Yarborough, a Fairbanks, and turn them into clutch performers. It is really fun to watch that because. Yeah. Spring training, I'm like, I don't even know who these guys are. And, they're aces out of the bullpen for the next season. So you're like, oh, wow, that worked again. Cool.
Yeah. And on the flip side of that, we're sitting here going, oh my God, that worked again. And, I can't believe that worked. And so it's just a fascinating kind of, when you look at it from the other point of view. And Michael, the reason I bring this up, with regard to the Rays situation, forcing them into situations that maybe other teams don't have to worry about. I do that because a little while ago I mentioned Blake Snell, and because I had read I can't forget his name, Topkins, maybe covers
Yep.
Mark. Yeah,
Mark Topkin.
Yes,
Not a
thank you.
fan. He does a lot of solid work for he's been the Braves beat writer since 1998. I feel he's a little bit too in close with the ownership.
Right.
He tends to walk the ownership line and leave the debating the ownership's decisions to some of the other columnists in the Tampa Bay Times. I don't think that they are as forceful on, hey, open up your books. $150 million for a new stadium is just not going to cut it, buddy. They don't put the pressure on ownership that I would like to see. And Topkin, I think he's a bit derogatory to some of the fan base on Twitter.
Okay.
He's belittled my work, which I took offense to. And so if you follow both of us on Twitter, or if you ever see me kind of be derogatory to him a little bit, it's not me on purpose. Like, it's because he insulted me years ago. Not right. He came out and dismissed my work, and I was like, dude, I'm putting in daily work. I might not be in the clubhouse with you, but I'm still putting in daily work on daily spreadsheets, and I'm not getting paid for this. So I felt like you'd be a little bit nicer to myself, some of the other bloggers who have done some really great work over the D Rays Bay is one, and there's 4 or 5 other ones that have just done some really good work. And why doesn't the Tampa Bay Times have a good rapport with them? They just don't.
And you know what?
I feel like he does. He's the lead on that.
Yeah, it's the same across baseball. I can speak to that for sure. Same story, different city, but yeah. So I feel your pain. But the reason I bring him up, and because you know what, I next time if I see it on Twitter, I'll jump in with you.
Okay.
I got your back, because he put an idea in my head about Blake Snell and potentially getting to the point where he's too expensive. And so a while back, I wrote, well, hey, this would be the perfect time for Toronto to swoop in and use that quote unquote financial muscle and whatnot. And so now, I guess in the recent weeks, we've seen that story kind of pick up a little bit with Blake Snell potentially on the market. So I guess the first question, and Jim here, Jim's watching on YouTube, and he's got the question exactly what I was going to say is, how possible is it, and what would it take to unload Blake Snell's money?
So I'm probably not as high on Blake Snell as a lot of the baseball world is. I think he gives you 5 no-hit innings, like as he showed in the World Series. And if you score in those first 5 innings, great. You hand it over to the stable, the 98-mile-an-hour Rays relievers to pitch the final 4. But Blake Snell has averaged 5 innings a start in his entire major league career. Even his Cy Young year, he got into the 6th inning, but then he got hurt, and now he's back to 5 innings a start. Well, I think he's better than, I compare him to some of the other fireballing Rays lefties that we've had. He's not as good as David Price. He's not as durable as David Price. He's not David Price. He's probably better than he's definitely better than Matt Moore. If you remember, Matt Moore pitched for us for a few years. He's better than Scott Kazmir, if you remember that. But both of and if you bring a righty in, he's probably better than Chris Archer. So he's the second best lefty we've had, probably the second best ace we've ever had outside of David Price. But he's not durable. And in 5 innings, if you give me 2 or 3 guys who could pitch 5 innings and give up 1 run, 2 runs, and I'm winning 4-2 by the 5th inning, hopefully I've scored 3 or 4 runs by the 5th inning, I still trust my bullpen to give me 6, 7, 8, 9 innings. Whereas Blake Snell is going to look great. He's going to strike out 13 batters in 5 innings. He's going to have a no-hitter through 5 innings. But in the 6th inning, he's going to run out of gas. So if that's your team and your team has a great bullpen and you want to try and lure Blake Snell from the Rays, sure, it's probably going to cost you a few of your top prospects because he is really good for 5 innings. But he's going to cost you more than Meadows and Glasnow. The Rays sold Price. I still think the Rays could have got more for David Price. They got Drew Smiley and Willie Adames. Smiley was inconsistent at best. Yeah. Adames is their starting shortstop. Blake Snell is going to cost you at least some real good Double-A players, maybe some top prospects. But he's a 5-inning pitcher. And that's not just because the Rays only pitch him 5 innings. That's because he runs out of gas. I like to say Kevin Cash got ripped for the World Series decision for pulling him in Game 6 of the World Series. But if you watch that, he was unhittable through 4 innings. He struck out like 10 batters in 4 innings. In the 5th inning, nobody struck out. They made contact. It might have been weak contact, but they were putting the barrel on the ball in the 5th inning. And I looked and I was like, okay, he didn't strike out anybody. 6th inning is going to be a struggle. So Kevin Cash had a quicker leash than I did. When I was thinking, all right, 6th inning is going to be a struggle, Kevin Cash was like, the 6th inning is not even going to happen.
Right.
So he got ripped for that. But if you've watched Blake Snell for his whole career, you're like, well, I'm not. The 5 innings are brilliant. They're absolutely the best 5 innings you could possibly get from a pitcher in the major leagues. But if I could get that for a couple of $3 million pitchers or some guys coming up from AAA, then Blake Snell becomes expendable. I hate to say it like that, but
right. Well, I'm kind of glad to hear you say it, to be honest, because if as a fan of the Toronto Blue Jays, we're in need of a pitcher, and Charlie Montoyo, who I'm sure you're at least a little bit familiar with.
Oh, very familiar.
Yeah, so he's starting to give guys the hook around the 5th inning anyway, right? So and that's a debate that's gone on behind the scenes at Jays from the Couch here. We've got different viewpoints on the whole 5-inning hook, but I would love 5 no-hit innings. So if you're looking for some catching depth, which I know the Rays could use some catching, I happen to have some ideas here in Toronto for you. And Matt, who's watching on YouTube, is wondering if you have, I guess, an awareness of the Blue Jays catching depth and whether or not there's somebody in-house that we could send to you for Mr. Snell.
Unfortunately, I do not. I don't know how deep you guys run behind the plate. Any behind the plate help helps for the Rays. The Rays are notorious for finding these low average, the Mike Zaninos, Jose Molina, who you guys are familiar with as well. And these guys that could barely hit their weight, but frame really well. And to have somebody behind the plate who we can hold on to for 4 or 5 years, who's young and exciting. It's been a position that the Rays have always kind of put on the back burner, and I don't know why they can't seem to develop their own catchers. So, yeah, if you want to send a catcher our way as part of a package for Blake Snell, the Rays front office might listen.
And that's all it takes. I just need an in, right? Because once I get that in, listen, I've got 3 catchers in mind with big league experience just this past season. So, I can make it happen, awesome. Michael. Yes. Yeah. All right.
And one of the good things about living here, if I could say, is Dunedin's right here. And we see the Dunedin team on a regular basis. Obviously, this year we didn't get to see the minor league baseball didn't happen. But to be able to pop over to Dunedin and to see some of the names that are coming through, especially when I was following holistically all of baseball in Tampa Bay, I was looking at the Dunedin box score daily, to see what the attendance is in Dunedin. We could talk about that a lot as well. But, to see when Vlad Guerrero came through, when Biggio came through, and Bo Bichette came through, and all these guys came through, and I'm like, yep, those are names I'm very familiar with from their time here.
Yeah, well, okay. Okay, just don't bring those up when we're talking about a trade for Blake Snell because
Oh, Blake Snell for Guerrero, I'd do it in a heartbeat.
Oh, I bet you would. Yeah. Has there been, actually, since you mentioned Dunedin, has there been any talk about the Blue Jays potentially playing in the Dunedin area in 2021? Or
so I saw you guys blog post on your website that mentioned it very, very briefly. I have not seen anything locally. Yeah. Right now, we're super excited to have the Raptors here. So, we've got the Raptors. Now we've got WWE has now called Tropicana Field its home for the next few months until baseball season. So we have been the island of miscast toys from a nice Christmas reference from Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. We've become the city of miscast sports entertainment teams. So I have not seen anything that says the Blue Jays would consider playing in Dunedin. It would be interesting because I am one of the few Tampa Bay sports fans who, although I love seeing the Raptors here, I object to them selling tickets because we have a very saturated sports market, right. and we are towards the bottom of per capita income for major metropolitan areas. We don't have as many Fortune 500 companies, for example, that make their headquarters here in Tampa Bay. So we have a very tourist service industry market or economy based economy that's taken a huge hit because of COVID. So if you have 5,000 people a night attending Raptors games, and you have now 5,000 people attending all these different sporting events, and then you have the Toronto Blue Jays playing in Dunedin, and they say, "Oh well, we want to sell tickets as well." Now you have even more competition for the Tampa Bay Rays to try and survive it. Right. And that's going to hurt them even more. So I'm all for teams making their home here. Come, we'll gladly adopt you for a season. But when it comes to selling tickets and taking from our economy and then going back home with that money, even if it's, 10% of the ticket sales goes to the organization or 20, I don't even know. But you're just going to leave with our local money that we need to support our local teams. Right. It sounds selfish, but it's where I come from on that.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense, and I'm interested. I gotta say, an elbow off of one of the rings at Tropicana Field is going to make for great TV. We're talking with Michael Lortz of the Tampa Bay Baseballmarket.com and author of Curveball at the Crossroads. Michael, I would love for you to give our viewers and our listeners a little bit of a synopsis of Curveball at the Crossroads. I'm very intrigued.
Okay, so I'm going to move my camera up here a little bit. It's too much of a glare. So, sorry, but that's a poster I made of the book. So Curveball at the Crossroads was published in November. Small local publisher out of the Orlando area. It's about an hour from Tampa. Published it.
Oh.
Technical difficulty?
Yep, there you are. I think you're back now.
Frozen, but
I can hear you.
Okay, can you? I'm giving the thumbs up. I don't know if you can see the thumbs up.
No, you're a frozen picture, but I can hear you.
Okay. All right, so Curveball at the Crossroads. Let me talk. Maybe I'll see my thumb up eventually. Curveball at the Crossroads is looks like it might be on my end. I'm getting a phone call right now that I'm obviously not taking. So something might be interrupting my data. But anyway, so Curveball at the Crossroads is a baseball story that is heavily influenced by blues, by the blues. I'm a big music fan. So it's a story about a young man who, in his final high school game, blows out his arm. So think Tony Saunders, who pitched for the Devil Rays back in the 90s, Dave Dravecky, who pitched for the Giants back in the 80s. Dave Dravecky pitched for the Giants, blows out his arm in his final high school game. There's a scout there who's ready to sign him. He's ready to make the jumps into professional baseball. So following that, though, the injury really his career is done. So he gets to drinking heavy. He gets in trouble with the law, and his life just becomes a mess. So he ends up at the mythical dirt crossroads in rural Mississippi. And if you're familiar with that motif, that you make a deal with the devil at the crossroads, you sell your soul to try and get back into the top of whatever your profession is. It's never been done with sports before, as far as I could ever find. So I took, like a Reese's peanut butter cup. I took peanut butter, I took chocolate, I put them together. And it turned out to be a really good story from my perspective as a writer. I was like, wow, this fits. This is working really, really well. Unfortunately, I never liked the ending. And it was always a rough draft for years. And I finally, when the pandemic hit, I got some really good feedback from Jay Busby from Yahoo Sports. Jay covers football and golf and sometimes baseball. But Jay's been a email friend of mine from a writer perspective for years. So Jay was like it, just make some little tweaks here and there. And so I got back to the drawing board. And during the pandemic, I finished it. I love the ending now, as I'm speaking very modestly. But the ending, I was so happy with the ending. And based on Jay's advice, I started pitching it to publishers. I think I got 2 rejection letters. I just focused on like small Florida publishers because I knew the big guys, the big New York, LA, Chicago, the big global publishers were not going to be interested in a small first-time author during a pandemic. So an author or a publisher from Orlando was like, I'll take it. I'm going to publish this. We'll edit it. We'll give you a really cool cover, and we're going to make some money. I was like, great, because there's a pandemic going on, and I could use money. Yeah. Let's do this. And plus, baseball fans are hungry for baseball. Mm-hmm. Because we went 2 months without baseball, 2.5 months. I said, the faster we could get this out, the faster we could get it to a hungry audience. So we got it out just after the World Series, and which is good for a Tampa Bay writer because Tampa Bay was obviously the World Series. I could ride the coattails of that fandom. So again, the story is about this young man who makes a deal with the devil. He gets to the top of the baseball world, and he still has this dark cloud that follows him. The devil visits him a few times during his career, and it's like, hey, buddy, I'm watching you. Make sure you give me the proper credit that I deserve as the one who made you who you are. And that's something that athletes normally, they thank God, they thank Jesus, they thank other positive deities. You do not find athletes thanking the devil ever. So it's a twist on the post-game interview. And so how he balances now this commitment to the Dark Prince while trying to stay at the top of the baseball world. The devil does come back, and and things kind of take a turn for the worse. So I'm very excited about it. I packed it with a lot of pop culture Easter eggs. So you'll definitely see some really cool Easter eggs in there. Some very cool, great references to a lot of baseball fiction. There's a Field of Dreams reference. There's a Natural reference. There's a Casey at the Bat reference. So I think baseball fans really enjoy it for that perspective.
Awesome. So I tried looking before we went on air here, and I'm just wondering, where can our viewers and listeners find and purchase said book?
So the book has a website, Curveball at thecrossroads.com. There's a big button right there that sends you to the publisher's website. The publisher has a long URL that I don't have memorized. So I just tell people, hey, so I went and created my own website, Curveball at the Crossroads. There's an author bio on there. There's some reviews. I had a really good review published today from a local blogger, a local sports blogger friend of mine who I let read it, and he published this really nice review that really warmed my heart. So I probably owe him a beer, I think, at least.
At least, yeah.
So it was really cool of him. So that's where you find reviews. That's where I put any book signings that I hope to do. And, and a page full of some of the Easter eggs where people could go and say, oh, that's some of the Easter eggs that he has kind of packed in there. So I've kind of made it a pretty informative website, curveball at thecrossroads.com. Now, that leads you to the publisher's URL. I hope to be on Amazon. Now, the difficulty with being on Amazon is Amazon for all their buying reach and for the fact that I would be a global, people all around the globe could buy the book very easily off of Amazon. Amazon does take a very significant portion of every sale.
Absolutely, they do.
And that kind of hurts small publishers and it hurts small authors. Because I did not get a signing bonus. I did not get an upfront payment on this book. I get paid on sales.
Yeah.
So Amazon takes 50%. That's significant. If it's a $20 book, Amazon's taking $10 right off the top.
Yeah.
So what we want to do is we want to try and build buzz. I want to try and get as many reviews as possible. So Amazon becomes a quantity thing. So if a local school board or an organization, a book club wants to buy it for all their members, sure, buy it off Amazon. But for now, I really am focusing on building an audience for the book. So the publisher right now has not put it on Amazon. I kind of wish, heart of hearts, I wish it would have been on before Christmas so people could, get on their Amazon Prime and get all their holiday shopping done and pick up my book while they're doing that. So I understand the convenience of Amazon. I bought a bunch of my own Christmas presents on Amazon. I get it. It's convenient. However, Amazon does take a portion of sales that my publisher's not comfortable with that at this time.
Oh, yeah. You don't have to tell me about that, buddy. We did two, the 2018 Guide to the Toronto Blue Jays and the 2019 version, and Jeff Bezos made a pretty penny off of us as well. So I get exactly what you're saying.
He does.
Yeah, that guy. Anyway, maybe he could buy a new stadium for the Rays.
That would be really nice. And his ex-wife now actually just gave one of the Tampa Bay charities $40 million. So
amazing.
Maybe I need to buy her a beer and maybe take her out to dinner and see what we can do.
See, quick thinking. I love it. All right, Michael, thank you so much for joining us on the Jays from the Couch radio podcast. Let everybody know how they can follow you and plug that link one more time for Curveball at the Crossroads.
So I am at TB Baseball MKT. That's my Twitter handle. You can find me at tampabaybaseballmarket.com is my website. It's a lot of posts about my book right now. So everything I post on the book's website, I also post on my blog's website because, I'm just trying to do some cross-marketing. It's the off-season, you understand.
Of course.
But the book's website is curveball at thecrossroads.com. I found in Google, once I type curveball at, it automatically fills the Crossroads because nobody else has made this title before. So I'm kind of happy about that. I'm number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 searches when you look up the title of the book because of several different websites and I put the book on every single one. But Curveball at the Crossroads is the website, and thank you very much for having me. It's been a lot of fun, even if my video did freeze.
It's all right. But what I hear from you is that there is absolutely no excuse for anybody watching or listening at home to not find this book. It's there. You can find it 6 different links on Google. So, Michael, thank you so much. All the best. Stay safe, stay healthy, and maybe we'll get you back on here another time when we'll talk Blue Jays and Rays.
Sounds great. Thank you for having me.
Awesome, dude. Take care.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to the end of episode 243 of the Jays from the Couch radio podcast, brought to you by jaysfromthecouch.com. Don't forget to tune in every week on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter to our live stream of our podcast, 7 p.m. Eastern time. We try and get a guest in. Great Blue Jays talk regardless. Don't forget the audio version on Google, Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, everywhere you find a podcast, you'll find Jays from the Couch as well. So for all of us, for Michael, for Blake Snell, for everybody, this is Sean Doyle. You can follow me on Twitter at Doyle JFtC, hoping life gives you a juicy fastball down the middle and you don't miss it. Take care.